It's Monday, August 17. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom. Jamaica has recorded 7 new cases of COVID-19. The total number of confirmed COVID-19 cases now stands at 1,113. Additionally, 3 more patients have been numbered among the recovered and released, bringing the total recoveries to 764. Of the newly confirmed cases, 3 are males and 4 are females with ages ranging from 16 to 51 years. 2 cases have been classified as imported, having arrived from the USA in early July 2020. 1 is a contact of a confirmed case, and the remaining 4 cases are currently under investigation. There are 9 moderately ill patients and 2 who are critically ill at this time. Some 28,209 persons of interest are quarantined at home, while 4 remain in quarantine at a government facility. The World Health Organization is urging global solidarity as the world scrambles to find a COVID-19 vaccine. The call comes from WHO head Tedros Ghebreyesus as he spoke at a recent press conference.
The best solution for everyone is a blend of development assistance and additional financing from stimulus packages to fund this effort. And this blend of financing is the best solution right now because it's the fastest way to end the pandemic and ensure a swift global recovery. We live in a globalized economy, and countries are dependent on each other for goods and services, transportation and supply. If we don't get rid of the virus everywhere, we can't rebuild economies anywhere.
The Director General spoke of the global economic toll that the pandemic is expected to exact in the coming years. He also warned about the dangers of price gouging when a vaccine is eventually developed.
IMF estimates the pandemic costs the global economy $375 billion a month and predicts a cumulative loss to the global economy over 2 years of over $12 trillion. The development of vaccines is long, complex, risky, and expensive. The vast majority of vaccines in early development fail. The world needs multiple vaccine candidates of different types to maximize the chances of finding a winning solution. When a successful new vaccine is found, there will be greater demand than there is supply. Excess demand and competition for supply is already creating vaccine nationalism and risk of price gouging. This is the kind of market failure that only global solidarity, public sector investment and engagement can solve.
Scientists at Yale University in the United States have developed a saliva-based laboratory diagnostic test for COVID-19. The United States Food and Drug Administration have guaranteed an emergency use authorization for the test. Yale made the announcement on Saturday, a day before Jamaica's Ministry of Wellness announced that the non-residents visiting Jamaica from the United States, Brazil, the Dominican Republic, and Mexico, which have all been designated as high-risk locations, are now required to obtain a COVID-19 polymerase chain reaction test prior to arrival. The ministry also reminded that visitors to the island upon arrival will be subject to health screening and risk assessment by the local health authorities. The Urology Department at the Kingston Public Hospital, KPH, says it will be purchasing much-needed equipment to enhance the urology services. The department recently received $1 million from the Jamaica Medical Foundation. Head of the Urology Department at KPH says the development will improve the team's ability to treat more patients with urinary tract infections. The Ginger Hill Health Center is set to get an infrastructural upgrade in St. Elizabeth, and Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton says the plan is further proof that the government's Adopt a Clinic program has been working. The clinic has been adopted by the hardware company National Supply Limited, with its owners making a 3-year commitment to provide $1 million each year to facilitate upgrades at the clinic. Dr. Tufton said the Adopt a Clinic initiative has garnered widespread support, with Jamaicans based locally and in the diaspora committing to $81.4 million to the cause. He was speaking at the adoption ceremony in Ginger Hill recently. Regional Medical Epidemiologist, Western Regional Health Authority, Dr. Mang Ong, is calling on Jamaicans to have a personal responsibility to manage health risks that can lead to cancer. Melvin Pennant has that story.
He pointed out that cancers are among the top 5 leading cause of death among men and women in Jamaica.
Cancer is one of the top 5 leading causes of death in Jamaica, and we have developed the strategic and action plan for prevention and control of cancer. That's a program plan that we have established. The overall goal of the plan is to reduce the burden and cost of preventable morbidity and disability and avoidable premature mortality due to cancer by 25% by 2025.
Dr. Hong was addressing a Jamaica Information Service GIS think tank session at the agency's regional office in Montego Bay, St. James recently. He further pointed out to other high-risk lifestyle choices such as smoking.
Personal responsibility is very important. We know that in my presentation I said we have modifiable risk factors which facilitating the causes of cancers such as obesity. We know that in this country, in the population, we have 1 in every 2 persons are obese or overweight. So that's one of the leading causes of, one of the contributing factors, risk factor. And we can reduce that. And also smoking. I mean, smoking is not that relevant in these days and age. And also exercise. So we tend to sit in the offices and we tend to drive our cars. I mean, I want to park almost near to the GIS building so that I don't have to walk. I not necessarily don't want to walk because of the rain. I don't want to run. So, why don't you park outside in Obata Plaza and walk one day and go over there and run? That's sort of physical exercise that you need.
Dr. Hong has partnered with the Westmoreland-based Misty Blue Cancer Care Foundation to inform, educate and support cancer patients in the parish. The foundation will spearhead several teleconferences to highlight statistics and trends related to cancer. Melvin Pennant, PBCJ News.
Jamaicans without a voter identification card will be allowed to cast their ballot on Election Day once their names can be found on the voters list. Director of Elections Glasspool Brown says the EOJ has put measures in place to identify electors in order to enable them to vote. Brown says persons who do not have a voter's identification card will be required to take an oath. The EOJ began the voter ID card renewal process in November of last year. As it relates to new persons who were placed on the voters list published on July 31, Brown says those identification cards should be collected at the EOJ constituency offices. You can visit the EOJ's website for more information. The Jamaica Debates Commission says there will be no in-studio audience for the 3 political debates ahead of the September 3 general election. The debates will be held on Tuesday, August 25, Thursday, August 27, and Saturday, August 29, and will begin at 9 p.m. and be 90 minutes in length. Chairman of the Jamaica Debates Commission, Noel DaCosta, says the commission is finalizing arrangements for the debate given the limited time before the general election. The first debate, which will be a team effort, will be on social issues. The second will be on finance and economies, and the third on leadership. Jamaican-born Muslim cleric Sheikh Abdullah El Faisal was arraigned in Manhattan Supreme Court on Friday and ordered held without bail. The Muslim cleric was extradited from Jamaica last Thursday. El Faisal had pleaded not guilty to a slew of federal charges that could see him spending the remainder of his life behind bars if convicted. According to the New York Daily News, prosecutors say that El Faisal encouraged terrorist acts against targets in New York and that he used his religious background and prominence to pervert the Muslim religion to justify the killing of innocent people. El Faisal, whose given name is Trevor Williams, is also accused of recruiting members for the Islamic State. August 17 is the birthday of national hero Marcus Garvey. Garvey was a political activist, publisher, Pan-Africanist, journalist, entrepreneur, and orator. He was the founder and the first President General of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, UNIAACL, commonly known as UNIA. His ideas came to be known as Garveyism. Garvey was hailed as a prophet by the Rastafari community and is regarded as one of the most influential thinkers in the 20th century. We now take a look at the local and international market shifts. Carol Francis sits in for Gabriel Thompson with the business report.
In Friday's trading session, the Jamaica Stock Exchange Combined Index declined by 763 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 75 stocks, of which 40 advanced, 27 declined, and 8 traded firm. The Junior Market Index advanced by 4 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Jamaica, AMG Packaging and Paper Company, and Berger Paints Jamaica. Stocks declined for Barita Investments Limited, Caribbean Cream Limited, and the Caribbean Producers Jamaica. Trading firm were 1834 Investments Limited, Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances Limited, and First Rock Capital Holdings. Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares was the volume leader with 10.3 million units, followed by Pulse Investments Limited with 3.2 million units and Jamaica Teas Limited with 1.9 million units. In foreign exchange trading, the US dollar on Friday, August 14, ended trading at $150.34. The Canadian dollar sold for an average of $114.41. The pound sterling traded for $198.05, and the euro ended trading at $181.09. Oil prices steadied on Monday as news that China planned to ship large volumes of U.S. crude in August and September countered rising tensions between the two countries and a delay in the review of their trade pact over the weekend. Brent crude futures fell 13 cents to $44.67 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures slipped 4 cents to $41.97 a barrel. And that's it for the business report on PBCJ. I'm Carol Francis.
In regional news, the Bahamas on the weekend recorded yet another grim milestone, exceeding more than 100 COVID-19 cases in a single day. We hear more in this report.
The Ministry of Health confirming 133 additional cases yesterday, bringing the country's total to 1,252 cases. New Providence accounting for the lion's share of that record-breaking amount with 102 cases. Meanwhile, Andros has its first confirmed case of COVID-19. Of the remaining cases, 13 are on Abaco, 10 in Grand Bahama, 2 in the Berry Islands, and 1 on Inagua. The ministry says 4 of the confirmed cases are pending. The sharp increase in cases comes as no surprise due to a backlog of tests.
What we are currently reporting to you through our lab outputs are likely results from about 14 days ago. Well, not really 14 days ago, but certainly we are delayed about 6 days, 4 to 5 days. So we will continue to see that kind of a spiking in our cases, but it will not be a true reflection of the as is now. As we enhance our capacity for testing and we have a higher throughput, we will be in a better position to characterize what is actually happening now.
Health officials reported some 800 samples pending processing. And with the National Reference Laboratory inundated with tests above its capacity, Dr. Pearl McMillan says Princess Margaret Hospital's lab is expected to bolster testing capacity to address the backlog.
With the new test systems, we now have access to a larger volume testing capacity in country, up to 1,000 samples per day. Therefore, the Ministry of Health will be providing more test results over the upcoming days, and our surveillance unit will contact those confirmed cases and their contacts as this information is made available.
And as cases continue to increase unabatedly, many are speculating whether a complete 2-week lockdown will now be imposed. Dr. McMillan explains how health officials arrive at their recommendations.
We look at a number of indicators as it relates to, what will actually give us the data required to make the recommendation. And we will look across all of those indicators as we move forward. Testing is one, and given our capacity challenge, that may be a strong reason why we may need to continue in the lockdown, but certainly that is just one of the indicators that we will look at.
In Barbados, the country's COVID-19 monitoring unit ordered the closure of 2 businesses for refusing to comply with set guidelines and issued warnings to others. More details in this Barbados Today report.
Businesses warned as a bar and a nightclub in Christchurch were ordered closed over the weekend for breaching COVID-19 protocols. The Tees Bar in Worthing and the Cove nightclub in St. Lawrence Gap had to close their doors for the night on Saturday following inspections by the COVID-19 monitoring unit and police officers from the Hastings Worthing police station. Director of the unit, Ronald Chapman, said patrons were not wearing face masks at the Tees Bar, although the operators had previously been warned. While at the Cove, several young people were partying in a confined space without face masks. Officers also traveled to St. James, St. Peter and to St. Joseph, which resulted in bars at Sion Hill, Speightstown and Sugar Hill being issued with breach of protocol warnings. The island's COVID-19 count moved up by 3 over the weekend. In the results released on Saturday, a 41-year-old female visitor and a 55-year-old Barbadian woman who arrived on a Virgin Atlantic flight on August 8 got positive results after being tested a second time. Both are asymptomatic. In Sunday's results, a 57-year-old Barbadian female arrived on a JetBlue flight on a Saturday afternoon and was immediately transferred to the isolation facility at Harrison Point, St. Lucie, after testing positive for the virus. The national tally of confirmed COVID-19 cases now stand at 151, and recoveries have increased to 122. The number of people in isolation remains at 22.
In Trinidad and Tobago, many residents took to the beaches on Sunday for that last dip in the salt before their official closure. On Saturday, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley announced that beaches will be closed for 28 days as there has been an increase in COVID-19 cases. Ian Wason and cameraman Rajnath Lal were at Maracas Bay and filed this report.
Maracas Beach came to life as scores of people took to the popular beach for one last time, at least for the next 28 days, as the beaches will be closed to the public. This could well be the last goal in a long time, as from tomorrow, the beach will be a ghost town or a ghost beach. Some people, like Venezuelan national Esperanza, understand the rollback is necessary.
The people, I hope, make the rules how have to be, because that is serious. That is not like a game. And the people every day get more and more sick and then don't see it's a serious thing.
Dara Phillips took the opportunity to bring her little ones to the beach before it closes.
Due to the fact that she will now be home until December, and we won't be able to come out, because you never know, after the 28 days, it may go further than 28 days. They've been inside since March, so take this one opportunity. They might not get it again.
While many took the opportunity to come to the beach, Some who we spoke to were taking the news hard, but are being optimistic.
It's a sad day for me. You know why? Because every Sunday I'm up here. This is part of my normal routine. But, you know what I mean, again, you know what I mean, it's for the betterment of the country, and it's to lock it down, and let me see how fast we could clear it up so we could come back to the beaches and enjoy Trinidad and Tobago.
For some, coming to the beach is a weekly activity. But from Monday, several COVID-19 restrictions will come into effect, and people have been advised to stay at home where necessary.
I don't know, I guess we stay home and drinking, that is it, and lime.
Stay home and focus on my children, you know. And you know, the school closed, so... But I think Minister of Sports home, and Mom is the Minister of Education. Yeah, so, you know, 50-50, we do my part. And everybody do the part also.
Bobo, the nutsman, says with the closure of the beaches, he will have to go and apply his trade on the highway.
Well, I go just like everybody to follow the regulations, that is all. Everybody. If we want this thing to come and pass, everybody just have to listen, and everything will work out with Irie, man.
With the restrictions to last 28 days in the first instance, beachgoers are taking every opportunity to enjoy the sun, sand and water one last time. Reporting at the Maracas Beach, Ian Wason, TTT News.
Young baby, anybody, watch all your clothes, gear up, and more shoes.
In sports, this year's staging of the Jamaica International Invitational Track and Field Meet has been officially cancelled. The 16th staging of the meet, which was originally scheduled for Saturday, May 2 at the National Stadium in Kingston, was postponed in March due to the COVID-19 pandemic. JAAA President Dr. Warren Blake says the association was still hoping to stage a meet in September. The meet started in 2004 as a NACAC area permit meet before being upgraded by the world governing body to a World Challenge meet in 2010. And that's the news on PBCJ. Thank you so much for watching.